In the previous videos, I talked about how to handle an absence of a value using option and none. But sometimes you want to provide some feedback on why a value doesn't exist, rather than only saying nothing exists. Let's see how we can do this. Let's consider this example. Here we have a function that divides 2 by its input, but only if the input is even. When the input is 0 or not an even number, the function is throwing an exception. We already know from previous videos that this makes our function partial, and we don't work with partial functions in functional programming. How can we make this function total? We already know a way. We can return an option of a number. This way our function will be total. But what about an error messages? Those were really useful in case of invalid inputs. But now we only get none for the invalid cases. How can we make this function total but still keep the error messages in case of bad inputs? As you guessed from the title of this video, the answer is in using either. Either is a type constructor that receives two types. I think you already guessed why we need two types. One is for when everything goes right and we have a good value, and the other is for when an error happens and things go left. Let's define right and left using interfaces with one type parameter. Right wraps a value of type A and left wraps a value of type E. Just to see a couple of examples of matching values, if we have a type of either of a string or number, any of these values are valid values for our type. Just to refresh, we don't deal with variables in functional programming. I just wanted to show a couple of example values matching the type either of a string or number. Similar to what we did for maybe, let's add tag property to our interfaces so we can distinguish right and left values in runtime. And also let's add a helper functions to lift and wrap our values in right and left. Here, the right function, in a small case, receives an input of any type A and returns an either type. The returned either type only matches the right, because eType parameter will never matches to any type for this function. If we think of types as sets of values, never type is an empty set. It means no values can match this type. We use this type in Typescript when we syntactically need to mention a type, but that type is not being used or should never receives any value. Same thing for the left function. It receives an input of any possible type E and wraps it in the shape of left. Alright, let's get back to our first example. We saw that option is not useful for us because it cannot include our error messages. So let's use either to solve this issue. Our new function is now returning an either of a string or number. A string for specifying an error and number for specifying a result of the function. When the input parameter is 0, function returns left with cannot divide by 0 message. When the input is not an even number, function returns left with num is not even message. Otherwise, when the input is a desired number for us, the function returns right of the value 2 divided by the inputs. In the next video, we will see all of this in practice. Alright, thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.